Okay, here we are recording. Hi everyone, my name is Mr. Positive. If you found this video and you're like, what is it? Well, let me quickly explain. I do videos Monday through Sunday, anywhere from 10 minutes to 20 minutes long, and of some kind of religious content. Currently, we are reading through a book called New Morning Mercies, a daily gospel devotional, and the author's name, of course, is Paul David Tripp, as you can see on the screen here. That's my passion, and that's what I like to do, and some of you enjoy it, and some of you give a comment or two, and that really pleases me. So if you're new to this channel and you're wondering what it is, and you want to give it a try, take a listen and see what you think. In the meantime, let's get started. February 26, 2021. Your life is not good because it is easy or predictable, but because I Am has invaded your existence by His grace. It is a very instructive vignette in the life of Jesus and His disciples recorded for us in Mark 6:45 through 52. Jesus has sent His disciples across the Sea of Galilee to Bethsaida. They have encountered an impossible headwind and angry seas. If you look at the time clues in the larger passage, you can see they have been roaring for about 8 hours. They are in a situation that seems impossible, exhausting, frustrating, and potentially dangerous. They are far beyond their strength and ability. As you read the passage, you have to ask yourself why Jesus would ever want His disciples in this kind of difficulty. It's clear that they're not in this mess because they've been disobedient, arrogant, or unwise, but because they have obeyed Jesus. Jesus sees His disciples are in the exhausting and dangerous situation, and He sets out and begins to walk across the sea. Yes, you read it right. He walks across the sea. Now, the moment He begins to take this walk, you are confronted with two things. The first is the fact that Jesus of Nazareth is the Lord God Almighty, because no other human being could do what He is doing. But there is a second important thing to observe. The minute He begins to take the walk, you know what He has in mind. If all Jesus wants to do is relieve the difficulty, He wouldn't have to take the walk. All He would need to do is say a prayer from the shore, and the wind would cease. He takes the walk because He is not after the difficulty, He is after the men in the middle of the difficulty. He is working to change everything they think about themselves and about their lives. Standing next to the boat as the wind still blows and the waves still crash, He says, "It is. Do not be afraid." He is actually taking one of the names of God. He is saying the I Am is with them, the God of Abram, Isaac, and Jacob, the one whom all the covenant promises rest. It is impossible for them to be alone because their existence has been invaded by the grace of the glory of the I Am. Why did Jesus send His disciples into the storm? He did it for the same reason He sometimes sends you into storms, because He knows that sometimes you need the storm in order to be able to see the glory. For the believer, peace is not to be found in the ease of life. Real peace is only ever found in the presence, power, and grace of the Savior, the King, the Lamb, the I Am. That peace is yours even when the storm of life takes you beyond the natural ability, wisdom, and strength. You can live with hope and courage in the middle of what once would have produced discouragement and fear, because you know you are never alone. The I Am inhabits all situations, relationships, and locations by His grace. He is in you. He is with you. He is for you. He is your hope. For further study and encouragement, 1 Samuel 17. All right, we're going to go right there, folks. Now the Philistines gathered their armies together to battle, and were gathered to Socoh, which belongs to Judah, and they encamped between Socoh and Azekah and Ephes Dammim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together, and they encamped in the valley of Elah, and drew up in battle array against the Philistines. The Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. And a champion went out from the camp of Philistines, named Goliath, from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits in span. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. And he had bronze armor. On his legs, and bronze javelin between his shoulders. Now the staff of his spear was like a weaved beam, and his iron spearhead weighed 600 shekels, and a shield bearer went before him. Then he stood and cried out to the armies of Israel, and said to them, Why have you come out to line up for battle? I am not a Philistine, and you, the servants of Saul. Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that will fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of the Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and who had 8 sons, and the man was old, advanced in years in the days of Saul. The 3 oldest sons of Jesse had just gone to follow Saul to the battle. The names of his 3 sons who went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, next to him Abinab, and the third Shema. David was the youngest, and the 3 oldest followed Saul. But David occasionally went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistines drew near and presented himself 40 days, morning and evening. Then Jesse said to his son David, Take now for your brothers an ephah of this dried grain and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp, and carry these 10 cheeses to the captain of their 1,000, and see how your brothers fare, and bring back news of them. Now Saul said, and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. So David rode early in the morning, left the sheep with the keeper, and took the things, and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the camp as the army was going out of the fight, and shouting for the battle. For Israel and Philistines had drawn up in battle array, army against army. David left his supplies in the hands of the supply keeper, ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. Then as he talked with them, there was the champion of Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistines, and he spoke according to the same words, so David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and were dreadfully afraid. So the men of Israel said, Have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel. And it shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich the great riches which give him his daughter, and give his father's house exemption from tax in Israel. Then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, What shall be done for the man who kills the Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is the uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him in this manner, saying, So shall it be done for the man who kills him. Now Eliab had his oldest brother heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, Why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. And David said, What have I done now? Is there not a cause? Then he turned from him toward another and said to the same thing, and these people answered him as the first ones did. Now when the words which David spoke were heard, they reported them to Saul, and he went for him. Then David said to Saul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with the Philistine. And Saul said to David, You are not able to go against the Philistines to fight with him, for you are a youth, and he a man of war from his youth. But David said to Saul, Your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it, and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard, and struck it and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear. And thus uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he is defied the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, The Lord, who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Go, and the Lord will be with you. So Saul clothed David with his armor, and he put a bronze helmet on his head. He also clothed him in a coat of mail. David fastened his sword to his armor and tried to walk, for he had not tested them. And David said to Saul, I cannot walk with these, for I have not tested them. So David took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, and he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook, and put them in his shepherd's bag, in a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand. And he drew near the Philistines. So the Philistine came and began drawing near David, and the man who bore the shield went before him. And David with the Philistines looked about and saw David. He disdained him, for he was only a youth, ruddy and good-looking. So Philistine said to David, Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. Then David said to the Philistine, You come to me with a sword, with a spear, with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. So it was, when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. Then David put his hand in his bag and took out a stone, and he slung it, and it struck the Philistine in his forehead, so that the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell to his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood over the Philistine, took his sword, and drew it out of his sheath, and killed him, and cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled now, and men of Israel and Judah arose and shouted and pursued the Philistine as far as the entrance of the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell along the road of Shaaraim, even as far as Gath and Ekron. Then the children of Israel returned from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their tents. And David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put his armor in his tent. When Saul saw David going out against the Philistines, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As your Saul lives, O king, I do not know. So the king said, Inquire whose son this young man is. Then, as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistines, Abner took him and brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand. And Saul said to him, Whose son are you, young man? So David answered, I am the son of your servant Jesse in Bethlehemite. And there ends the reading of today. We are going to go ahead and read truth to action, as there are some to this chapter. Be right back. All right, so 1 Samuel chapter 17. The action to it is in verses 17, 33 through 50. So we're not going to read all of that because we just got done reading most of it. So let's just go straight to the action. Or no, the truth. The walk of faith. Samuel's life reveals the faith lifestyle of reaching out to the trusting in God, even in the face of previously unknown experiences and seemingly insurmountable odds. Trust. That was the truth. The action. Trust in the Lord and remember his faithfulness to you in the past. Do not fear opposition, even when it seems stronger or better supported. Be confident that God can use what you have at hand to overcome any obstacle you face. Very beautiful message. All right, everybody, that was a really amazing message. I loved it. It was really powerful. Wow, what I got out of it is trusting in the Lord. When everything is down, when all your chips seem gone, metaphorically, right? We're not gambling here, but when you're just down and out, remembering that God is always with you, no matter what, through the trials of life, through the trials of whatever issue you're going through, just know that it is important to really believe that God is in there. God is with you every single step of the way. My favorite poem that I always think about is Footprints. How when there's only one set of prints, we question, why is there only one set of prints? And God said, I carried you when you needed me most. That's a powerful poem, and in fact I'm going to look it up and reread it today as soon as I'm done with this video. So yeah, that's what I learned about today. I want to talk a little bit about, again, the drama community that I'm a part of, since this is a YouTube channel, and I am a part of the YouTube creation, right? And I want to direct my attention today to the drama channel, the drama that happens to surround St. Jude, and the criminality of certain creators who have done some not so nice things you can say legally, or you could say morally. It really doesn't matter where you stand on it. There is wrong. At least 90% of the people believe it. And what I want the world to understand, what I want the YouTube world to understand in my community is stay strong. Know that pushing through, doing the right thing, being safe about it, not doing anything evil, not doing anything spiteful, but staying on top of things, staying forward, making sure that we get what we think we deserve. And as long as God is in the picture in one way or another, then we can't fail, in my opinion. So, like the scripture read from Paul David Tripp today, stay strong. God is with us. God will see us through as long as we stay strong, and as long as we persevere in the right direction, and we will get results that we deserve. I truly believe it. Now, that might sound blasphemy-ish, but I don't think so. I think we as a community want answers, and I think if we do it correctly, God is pleasing to that, right? So that's what I believe, and that I hope us as a community can really understand that God has our back. And to be honest, I want God to have the accused back too. I want, in the aspect of a realization, in the aspect of openness, in the aspect of sharing with us things that are needed. It's never too late. One would think it is. One would think, well, we'll still go further. I wouldn't, and I hope that anyone who is sensible wouldn't. So my prayer for the creator that is causing all this chaos is that she wakes up and realizes that if she is godly and if she is with God, she will suddenly wake up and give us some kind of answers that are fulfilling and not partial. So it works both ways. I want God to be on both sides. So there's my 2 cents in the drama of what I want to talk about today. So let's just say, hey, if you are a new subscriber or a returning subscriber and you would like this type of content, please consider hitting the subscribe button if you haven't already. If you have done so, also consider hitting the like button on the video that you are watching this with, and also hitting the notification bell. If you do all 3 of those things, it helps my channel out big time. The more people that subscribe to my channel, regardless if you ever come back or not, the YouTube algorithm allows me to grow my channel so that way I can grow bigger and be able to do a lot more things for the glory of God, in my opinion. So thank you very much for that, and I hope that you got some kind of value out of it. And like I said, I always end the videos with saying that I know that Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins, right? Takes a powerful love to be able to do that for us. That he died on the cross for my sins, and that is so powerful it brings me to tears. And because I know that, that's an overabundance of love. And so I can't help but want to use that love towards anyone So I say freely, and I say clearly, and I say with truth, I love each and every single one of you. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter your faith, doesn't matter your beliefs. Well, the last two are the same thing, and it doesn't matter if we like each other or don't like each other. That is a human emotion. But when it comes down to it, I love each and every single one of you, and I pray for all sides. So, with that, I hope that you all have a beautiful, wonderful day. Bye now.